It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
Let me describe a movie from the late 1990s to you, and you try and guess which one I'm talking about, okay?
I'm going to be as forthcoming as I can be.
So, there's a major threat against an underground world, and the people fighting to protect this alternate society must find the chosen one to help them win against seemingly impossible odds. While in this underground world, the chosen one is able to harness his powers and unlock unthinkable abilities. Is this starting to ring a bell? Say it with me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Space Jam!
Obviously, you are mistaken.
Wait, why did so many of you say The Matrix? Also, why did so many of you actually speak out loud to your screen? You're not supposed to know that we can hear you. I mean, we can't hear you. What? Nothing. Space Jam is The Matrix. Seriously, think about it. Despite the fact that you'd never link these two movies, or probably ever even mention them in the same sentence other than when discussing the best films of the 90s, they're actually a lot more similar than you may think. It may seem like they have nothing in common, but there's a ton of evidence that would suggest that the movie Space Jam, starring Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny, actually takes place within The Matrix. Like the Keanu Reeves Matrix. Remember, The Matrix is all about the red pill or the blue pill theory? In short, if you take the red pill, then you're aware that we're living inside a simulation and you become privy to all sorts of difficult truths. Taking the blue pill means remaining ignorant and choosing to stay in the dark when it comes to the truth. You know what they say, ignorance is bliss, right?
Why, oh why didn't I take the blue pill?
As we know, our protagonists in the movie The Matrix are all advocates for the red pill as they choose to fight instead of remain blissfully ignorant. What if the same thing could be said for Michael Jordan in Space Jam? The movie came out just 3 years before The Matrix. What if it's actually a prequel of sorts and they both tell a shockingly similar story? So let's just say that Michael Jordan took the red pill in some way, shape, or form. Then, all of a sudden, some cartoon characters pop up and pull him into the ground while he's golfing. Jordan ends up in Looney Tune World, which could very simply just be an alternate universe within The Matrix.
You guys are nuts.
After all, as we eventually learn, it's possible to create all sorts of different false realities and simulations within The Matrix. That's sort of the point of it. The machines are constantly trying to keep the humans occupied so that they don't wake up. In doing so, they're constantly trying to convince humans that their reality is the true one, even when it isn't. So the whole Looney Tune world in Space Jam could very easily just be a layer within The Matrix. If you've seen The Matrix, then you know it's about a computer programmer by the name of Thomas Anderson, aka Neo, who keeps stumbling on the phrase The Matrix. He then meets up with Morpheus, who offers him the choice between the red and the blue pill. As soon as Neo chooses the red pill, his entire reality disintegrates and he wakes up in a pod. He realizes that he was simply stuck in a false reality. The whole thing is very Inception-y, but they did it first. Well, actually, they weren't the first.
Yeah, go on.
Sure, Inception came out in 2010 and The Matrix was back in 1999, but it wasn't the first to properly boast a complicated web of false realities. In 1996, some would say that Space Jam did it even better. Probably not a general consensus, but like I said, some would say.
Show me.
Space Jam tells the story of that time mediocre baseball player and former basketball star Michael Jordan gets sucked into a hole while playing golf with Bill Murray and Larry Bird. Side note, the amount of money that I would pay just to play a round of golf with Bill Murray and Larry Bird, it's astronomical. Anyway, MJ gets sucked into the Looney Tune world where Bugs Bunny explains their dire situation and solicits the former NBA champion for some help. What's funny to me is that Michael Jordan initially refuses to help the cartoon world. Then the villainous Monstars show up and insult his pride, which is something you just don't do to Michael Jordan, and then he accepts the challenge.
Oops.
So first of all, the Monstars really shot themselves in the foot on that one because they definitely would have squashed the Toon Squad if Jordan never played for the team. Also, it's shockingly consistent with Jordan's real-life persona that he'd refuse to help the characters in need, but then only agrees to compete when he gets personally insulted.
You're not scared of them, are you, Michael?
It's equally Michael Jordan that he immediately makes a high-stakes wager on the outcome of the game. Even though it's basically a cartoon movie for kids, Mike can't help but gamble. Later in the movie, during halftime of the big game, Jordan even doubles down on his bet and increases the stakes of the bet. What a guy. Now's a good time to remind you to subscribe to ScreenRant and to turn on those notifications. If you're watching this on mobile, just go into your YouTube settings and hit mobile notifications. Then you're all set. Now back to the video. So, off the bat, a couple similarities to discuss. For starters, there's the concept of the One.
Yeah.
In The Matrix, it's very clearly Neo who gets labeled as such. In Space Jam, they never quite use that term, but they do imply that Jordan is the only man who can save them. After all, he's the greatest basketball player on the planet, or perhaps who's ever existed, and the Toon Squad's entire world was conveniently riding on a game of basketball. Plus, the Monstars didn't steal Mike's powers like they did all the other best players due to the fact that he wasn't in the NBA at the time. He was off foolishly pursuing a failed career in baseball, so his talents were left untouched. He was the last hope for the cartoon world, and the only person who could save them. For all intents and purposes, he was the chosen one. By the way, quick tangent, but how terrible were the Monstars at judging talent? Like, if your goal is to steal the talent from the 5 best players in the world, and you choose Sean Bradley and Muggsy Bogues to be on your short list, then you're a horrible scout. I know this is probably only going to resonate with deep-cut basketball fans, but those are some terrible selections from like a management perspective.
No, seriously?
Michael Jordan was actually the first chosen one. He quite possibly could have been the initial attempt at finding the right one, only for Morpheus and his crew to discover that he wasn't worthy of being brought up and was just left inside a simulation. It's my belief that there's been multiple failed attempts to find the one, and that they didn't just stumble upon Neo by mistake. It was a carefully crafted attempt at finding their savior, with multiple failed attempts, and Michael Jordan just happened to be one of them. He may not have been the first one even. There's no telling how far back this could have gone, or how long they've been searching for the one until they finally got to Neo in 1999. And the similarities don't end there. Both chosen ones have a relationship with a Sherpa of sorts, a secondary character that guides them through the ins and outs of these wild alternate realities. In The Matrix, Neo has Morpheus, who guides him along his journey. In Space Jam, it's Bugs Bunny who acts as Jordan's tour guide through Looney Tunes World. After all, both Neo and Jordan were completely bewildered and flustered when they came to learn the truth. It's a lot to process, that's for sure. So they both needed to be shown the ropes and had these characters there to guide them. In fact, both main heroes only truly grasped the full scope of their powers near the end of their respective movies. Neo learns to harness his abilities as the Chosen One and starts slowing down time and figuring out how to fly and generally just shaping his own reality. All pretty standard Matrix stuff. And the same could be said about MJ, who, in the final seconds of a close game, learns that the cartoon world rules apply to him as well, despite the fact that he's human. With his newfound knowledge, he's able to stretch from half court to dunk the ball and win the game for the Toon Squad. Plus, Bugs has a whole squad of characters behind him, just like Morpheus has an entire crew of his own. In both scenarios, there was an established team with a clearly defined leader, just waiting for their star player to show up and save the day. It's almost identical, only Space Jam had Bill Murray. Even the bad guys are comparable. In The Matrix, it's the machines who are to blame, but the actual face of the antagonist belongs to Agent Smith. His role is similar to that of the Monstars in Space Jam, who were tiny little unthreatening creatures that managed to steal talent from NBA All-Stars and become these big imposing threats. One Agent Smith wasn't so scary, but a sea of Agent Smith certainly was. 5 little aliens wasn't threatening at all, but a squad of bulky Monstars absolutely was. There's also the fact that both of these memorable movies are coming back. Space Jam 2 starring LeBron James is set to be released sometime in 2021, and a 4th Matrix movie is apparently already in the works starring Keanu Reeves. Although, a 4th Matrix movie starring LeBron James would be pretty interesting too. Is this a coincidence that both of these 20-year-old franchises are suddenly coming back? I mean, sure, the movie industry hasn't really had an original idea in about 7 or 8 years, and they keep relaunching old projects in hopes of just raking in on nostalgia, but what if it's deeper than that? What if the reason this is happening is because there's actually a deeper link between the two? Well, it's because Space Jam takes place within the Matrix. It just happens before. It was a failed simulation that brought them one step closer to finding Neo.
Happens all the time.
It'll be interesting to see how the new Space Jam movie and the new Matrix movie turn out, and if they have the guts to finally link the two once and for all. What do you guys think? Does this theory make sense, or are you waiting until LeBron James starts dodging bullets to finally believe us? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Before you go, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed to ScreenRant to stay up to date on all of our latest releases. Until next time, bye!